U.S. forces cracking down, conducting a maritime interdiction more than 2,000 miles from the Strait of Hormuz, boarding a sanctioned tanker ship transporting oil from Iran in the Indian Ocean. This coming as President Trump has a new warning for Iran over the strait. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Dana Perino. Bill Hemmer is off today. It's great to have you.
Got the other Bill.
Yes, the other Bill in my life.
Good to see you as always. I'm Bill Malugin. President Trump tells Fox right now there's just no rush to make a deal with Iran as the ceasefire remains in place, while the U.S. continues to enforce a naval blockade, disrupting illicit networks, providing material support to Iran wherever they operate.
The point of this is the economic leverage that we maintain over Iran now. While there's a ceasefire with respect to the military and kinetic strikes, Operation Economic Fury continues, and the crux of that is this naval blockade. So the president, the cards are in his hands. The United States maintains control over the situation. He has all of the leverage. But right now, the blockade continues to be massively effective and inflicting maximum leverage and economic pressure on the regime right now.
And Lucas Tomlinson has some new information from the White House. He is joining us live on the North Lawn. Lucas, good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill. President Trump issuing new orders to the U.S. military to destroy any Iranian boats caught laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz, saying he will blow up the ceasefire if they do. The president also posting on Truth Social moments ago another post about Iran's leadership saying, quote, Iran is having a very hard time figuring out who their leader is. They just don't know. The infighting between the hardliners, who have been losing badly on the battlefield, and the moderates, who are not very moderate at all, but gaining respect, is crazy. We have total control over the Strait of Hormuz. No ship can enter or leave without the approval of the United States Navy. It is sealed up tight until such time as Iran is able to make a deal. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, overnight, as you mentioned, Bill, U.S. forces boarding a third Iranian ship, what the military is calling a right of visit boarding of a sanctioned stateless vessel called the Majestic 10, transporting oil from Iran in the Indian Ocean. Pentagon says it will continue global maritime enforcement like this to disrupt illicit networks and interdict vessels providing material support to Iran wherever they operate. Yesterday, Iran seized 2 ships in the Strait of Hormuz after U.S. forces seized 2 of Iran's ships in an apparent tit-for-tat. Iran says the strait remains closed unless the blockade is lifted. And according to Central Command, U.S. forces have directed 31 vessels to turn around or return to port as part of the U.S. blockade against Iran. Here's more from Caroline Levitt on the negotiations with Iran with Martha yesterday.
We're waiting to hear back from the Iranian regime. The fact that they cannot send a unified message yet, which is why the president decided to extend the ceasefire, just shows how effective Operation Epic Fury truly was, because there's a lot of internal division over there. The president understands that, and so we await their response. Well, the president, the cards are in his hands. The United States maintains control over the situation. He has all of the leverage.
Right now, there are no plans for Vice President J.D. Vance to lead a delegation to Islamabad to resume negotiations with Iran, who says they won't show up to Islamabad to talk with the U.S. side unless the blockade is lifted. In the next few days, a third U.S. aircraft carrier strike group will be on station in the Middle East. That's the USS George H.W. Bush strike group. Bill.
All right, we'll see if we end up getting that second round of talks. Lucas Tomlinson live at the White House. Lucas, thanks.
More on this with Brent Sadler. He's a Heritage Foundation Senior Fellow and former U.S. Navy captain. I want to have you listen to somebody you probably know very well, Kenneth Brathwaite. He was on last hour. He's a former Secretary of the Navy.
The power of America from the sea to the shore is being demonstrated today. We do have the ability to seize the straits. We do have the ability, as the president indicated, to wipe out the fast boats. We have 3 carrier strike groups. We have 2 amphibious readiness groups, assorted other fleet assets that are there. Again, this is the greatest concentration of naval forces that we've seen in a long time.
And Brent, as you add the USS George H.W. Bush, that's a lot of naval power there that can help figure out a way to get this to the next stage. Your thoughts this morning?
Oh, yes, that's a lot of afloat diplomacy that's headed towards Iran, and they need to take note. I think it's important to kind of also build on what President Trump said in his Truth Point posting just recently, and that is any Iranian forces laying mines will be attacked. I don't think that necessarily invalidates the wider ceasefire. it also should be expanded or considered to go after any of these small boats that are trying to seize or attack shipping going through the straits, like the capture of 2 MSC vessels, arguably in Iran's designated shipping routes. So an interesting way to treat those that are following their diktat. But the U.S. Navy, the U.S. military is definitely repositioned, rearmed, and ready to restart another campaign of strikes across Iran if necessary. But the blockade is having the desired effect, pressure on Tehran, but also pressure on its benefactors like Beijing.
Speaking of that blockade, President Trump had a phone call with our colleague Martha McCallum yesterday afternoon where he talked about it. If we could pull a line out from that phone call, he said, quote, "The blockade scares them even more than the bombing. They've been bombed for years, but the blockade they hate." The president says it's costing Iran upwards of $500 a day to have that blockade. Do you think he's right with his assessment there? The Iranians are more afraid of that blockade than military bombing?
Yes, and I think it has to do with the calculation of groups like the IRGC. It's not about dollars or the bucks, it's about power. And if they're not able to maintain their networks of, coercion and brutality in the streets of Tehran, then they will be out of power. And so the blockade's taken away their finances, their ability to continue to arm and to keep the muscle on the streets, so to speak. But at the same time, it's alienating them from their biggest benefactors and allies, like Beijing.
It's easy to, when you listen to Caroline Levitt, you can get a sense of where they're coming from, looking at this. Obviously, they're realistic and they're pragmatic, but they're also saying, okay, these are the things that are going well. If you were take a moment, though, and say, is there anything that concerns you right now? If you were looking at this saying, this very unpredictable situation where you do not have command and control in the Iranian leadership, that seems to me quite dangerous because you don't know who's making decisions.
Well, actually, I think it's by design that they're starting to fracture because the only way you get to a better place with Iran is giving an opportunity for the regime to change its nature, to live in peace with its neighbors, to include Israel, not threaten American citizens. And so they're going to fracture. They're going to have a messy period where they're going to change by themselves, hopefully, the Iranian people being the voice that matters most. And the blockade that's being enforced right now is making that focus inward in Iran. And again, not knowing who's in charge, I think this should have been anticipated. And it's part of the byproducts of applying the pressure, economic, as well as the military, the epic fury and the economic fury that's being brought to bear on them. So we'll go through this. The Iranian regime that comes out of this is hopefully one that is acceptable to American interest and not threatening American lives.
Brent Sadler, we appreciate you being on to kick off our second hour here on America's Newsroom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.